Hey everyone, it's Caravan of Garbage. Because Ocean's 8 is nearly in theatres, or it is, who knows?
Or maybe there's a third format that we don't even know exists in the future.
Yeah, maybe someone shoots a bullet of entertainment right into your brain.
Ah, my brain! Ooh, content.
So we thought we'd look at the original Ocean's 11. And
Now this is the original. This isn't the one with your Clooney and your Brad Pitt, those boys.
No.
It's with some stars of yesteryear, which at the time were the stars of today.
Correct. The Ocean's 11, the kind of we grew up with. So I rewatched it. It's a blast, man. It's a lot of fun. It's a rollicking adventure. Everyone's got different skills.
We grew up with it. I watched it with my dad every year.
That's right. But the tagline of this movie should be, imagine the simplest heist to ever be pulled off by 11 of the drunkest and dumbest men on the planet.
You're wrong, because it's drunkest and dumbest and most interchangeable, man.
Yes.
Because who's who in this movie?
I mean, you recognise your Dean Martins, you recognise your Frank Sinatras, your Sammy Davis Jr.'s. Cesar Romero's in it.
He is, that's true.
Which is a bit of a blast.
Wearing his iconic, I will never shave this off, even for my role as the Joker, mustache.
But everybody else just kind of guys with slick hair drinking whiskey at a bar.
Wearing ill-fitting suits.
And calling each other they're all in different hotels calling each other, but via the operator, and you have to see all of that, but then often they're not in, or they pretend they're not in.
At one point, Cesar Romero picks up the phone, and he goes, operator, cancel all my upcoming calls. And I'm like, oh, thank God. I don't want to see any more scenes where somebody calls somebody else through the operator.
So the idea is that Frank Sinatra's character, you're Danny Ocean. So they're all from this World War II airborne division.
They're all ex-paratroopers.
Yeah, it's 15 years after the war. It's 1960. It's the 60s. It's the swinging 60s, Mason.
Mm-hmm. I don't think it's quite the swinging 60s yet.
No, it was shot in like 59.
Yeah,
so
right.
It's the dull and dreary 50s.
Yeah.
The first thing we see of Frank Sinatra is he sidles on into a room where one of his mates is getting a massage, and he's wearing a delightful orange cashmere sweater, and it's possibly the worst thing I've ever seen.
Brutal. Look, it's not the worst thing about this movie.
Oh, absolutely
it's not even the worst thing about that scene. The worst thing about that scene is this just a oily, shirtless man sitting on a couch, just ruining the upholstery. I should stress also, before we get way into this movie, nothing happens in it.
No, absolutely not. When you find out what the heist is, it's 52 minutes in before you find out what it is. And you think when they're gathering the crew that they're all going to have different skills or different personalities.
Imagine having a different personality from another guy in 1960.
But they're mostly entirely interchangeable, and the only ones with skills is one's an electrician, and one drives a garbage truck. And everybody else can kind of do the same thing.
You're incorrect. Frank Sinatra, Danny Ocean's ability is that he can mimic various accents, but only on the phone and only for prank-related purposes.
And he has to put a handkerchief over the receiver.
And I don't want to compare it to the new one so much, but the new one is so much better.
Ugh.
The first 45 minutes is just introducing characters, but it's like, here's something that's happening on a racetrack. Here's something that's happening in a robbery in progress. Here's something happening on a subway. This movie, it's just, hey, here's a dude in a suit in a hotel room. Here's another dude in a suit in a hotel room.
Here's a guy in a hotel bar. There's a guy that's getting out of jail, but we don't see him get out of jail.
He's
just
on the
in
phone.
An office.
It's like, oh, we can't use him. He's in jail. Actually, we can because he's getting out of jail. Oh, cool. Oh, hey, man, you've gotten out of jail. Yes, I got out of jail. What was jail like? It was fine. Don't want to talk about it or see it, though.
There is a fist fight early on, and this happens in, I guess, the action set piece of the movie. We cut to a burlesque club, and Frank Sinatra's there, and he's having a drink at the bar, and people are sidling up to each other, getting a whiskey or whatever.
There's a lot of sidling.
There's a lot of that. And what passes for entertainment in this era that I love is there's a woman on stage. She's in like a bikini with a skirt, and she's just holding a snake above her head and just
twirling?
moving in a circle.
Yeah.
And then at the end, she kind of goes down on one knee to raucous
And everyone
applause.
is wild. It's like another universe, isn't it?
It's crazy.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, like, the first time I watched the show Mad Men, which is set in the 60s as well, I'm like, this is like a parallel universe. It's like an alien world because the attitudes are so different and the reality is so different. It's the same here. It's like, is this what people liked? You went out for this. You dressed up. You put on an ill-fitting boxy tuxedo to go out and watch a woman twirl a snake.
Well, the second woman that comes out, who's called Honeyface, who's the wife of one of the men who's pulling off the heist, she comes out in a white dress, and I'm thinking, okay, she's going to sing, she's going to dance, she's going to do a cartwheel, fire twirl, I don't know. And then she just clip-clops in a circle for about a minute to everybody, and everybody's watching, and then it cuts to the bar, and Frank Sinatra's having a conversation with the guy's wife or whatever, and you hear the crowd kind of rear up that something's happening, and I expect it's going to cut back and she's balancing on a chair or throwing a knife or something, but she's just clip-clopping in a circle. It's exactly the same thing.
We're introduced to Sammy Davis Jr.'s character. It's just a bunch of blue-collar dudes standing in an open field, and somebody's just playing a harmonica. Somebody's just playing a harmonica, and then they stop playing the harmonica, and people are like, "Yeah,
good stuff." Yeah, there was a song I recognised that Dean Martin sung.
He sings "Ain't That a Kick in the Head." He sings it twice,
which I quite liked. Mm-hmm. But there's also a bar fight early on, and it's the choreography you'd expect from this era. A guy throws a right, someone blocks it on their left, and then punches him in the face, and that happens like 3 different times. There's no finesse to it. It's just block, punch in the face. That's it.
You would think if you lived in this era, maybe swing your punch,
yeah,
expect it to be blocked,
yeah,
and then expect it to be blocked for the other guy to then punch you in the head, and then block that punch.
That's it.
And then just see who gets tired of blocking first. That's how fighting worked back then. Look, all the delightful characters have been introduced. I can't even... Peter Lawford is another guy.
Yeah, there's another... Okay, so the guy they get out of jail is an electrician. He's important, would you say? There's a guy who turns up to the house just before where they're going to plan the big heist, and they're going to do the big reveal, and he's in a cowboy hat, and he's drunk, and he's got a broken arm.
Yeah, that's right.
Except he's not drunk, and he comes in, and the guy who's in charge is like, "What do we get this guy for? He's got a broken arm. He can't do anything. What are you doing?" And then Danny Ocean's like, "Watch this," and he throws him a billiard ball, and he catches it. And he's like,
with his broken arm.
It's like, "Look, it's a fake cast," and he takes it off, and everyone's like, "Great stuff."
He's done it again. He's thinking, a real chameleon.
Is he like a sleight of hand guy? What's his skill? It must factor into his quick reflexes and the fact that he's got a fake cast. Nothing.
That never comes up again. Yeah,
ridiculous.
It never comes up. At no point do we see he has to smuggle something through, so he puts a fake cast on. It never happens again.
No.
It's wild.
Bizarre. So they show up for this meeting, and Frank Sinatra pulls out a map. Well, it's not a map. It's a road, and it's got like 6 casinos.
You know what other skill he has? He's just got a magician skills. Because that's like a blue handkerchief, and like a silk one, and then he waves his hand around it, and then it's a yellow handkerchief, and then it's a map.
Oh, wow.
Like he does some serious close-up magic skill.
And I'm thinking, this must be some elaborate heist where they're gonna rob one, and then and they're gonna come in through the ceiling or whatever. But it's basically there's 6 casinos in a row, and they're gonna switch off the power, and then they're just gonna walk in and take the money. And I'm thinking there must be a twist to this, but it's literally that. That's all they need to do.
The additional wrinkle is that when the lights get cut out like when the power gets cut at the casino, there's some backup power which turns the lights back on.
Yeah, right.
So what they're going to do is they're going to cut 2 wires,
yes,
and they're going to switch the wires. So instead of when the backup power generator switches on, instead of the lights coming back on, it's just going to open all the security doors.
Yes,
that's it.
And that's what they need the electrician for. But Frank Ocean is the one who...
Danny Ocean. You're thinking of Frank Ocean, the great singer.
Danny Ocean is the one who tells the electrician to do that. He's like, "Can't you just switch the wires?" And the electrician's like, "Yeah, probably."
Right.
And it was so important that this guy would be out of jail to do this.
Yeah, right.
This thing that Frank or Danny Ocean already knew about.
You could. That's true. That didn't occur to me. But yeah, you could just get a regular electrician and be like, "Hey, can you come here for a sec? Hey, can you switch these wires? Yeah, cool. Here's $50. All right, see you later, mates."
So when they're scoping out the casinos, they're suspiciously walking around the floor, just nodding to each other. You notice that? There's like one will stand near a door and he's dressed as a cleaner, and then there's a guy at the bar and they're like, nod.
It feels very much like a student film or a film that they did on the day.
Yes.
But then I guess there was a script to this, or was there?
Well, I can talk about that a bit more at the end, but there was a script. But this was also shot around them all performing their shows in Vegas at the time.
Okay.
So they'd perform their shows and they'd get up early and then they'd do this and then they'd drink until they'd have to do the next show or whatever these guys do. But when the heist starts, they look so suspicious. And they're just standing awkwardly and again, like looking at each other, like from across the room.
Nodding and saluting and waving.
But the doors just open when the lights go out and they just walk in with a duffel bag.
And the security guards don't have any flashlights. There's no dogs. Oh, also because you know how in all these heist movies, there's like normally the security's impregnable, but on this day at this time, this is going to happen. There's going to be a system reboot. There's going to be a computer thing. Everybody's going to be doing a thing. Yep. And so we've got exactly 30 seconds and we're going to do this and we're going to switch the cameras and we're going to do whatever. The main thing of this is, well, normally the security would be impregnable, but in this instance, it's New Year's Day. It's going to hit the stroke of midnight and everybody in Las Vegas is going to stop what they're doing and sing Auld Lang Syne all together without exception.
For 1 minute and 32 seconds.
38 seconds. Don't give... Yeah. You got to be precise. But also, I've been at New Year's parties and people sing Auld Lang Syne for as long as they can be bothered concentrating. Yes. Or for as long as they can remember the words, which is usually about 20 seconds. Look, we've timed it out, so everybody is going to be steadfast and they're going to be locked into this song for exactly that amount of time. So that's exactly how long we have. No.
But this is an era where people can watch a woman
clop a
snake around a stage.
Guess so.
For 20 minutes.
I guess they're like, oh, okay, right. You know what, everybody, we've got 1 minute and 38 seconds to not think about the grim realities of death. So if you don't sing it for the full amount of time, you're un-American. You're probably a communist, so...
They walk in and they walk out with the money.
Yep.
They put it in trash cans out the back of each casino.
Yep.
So, because that's the easiest way to get it out of Vegas, because Sammy Davis Jr. is going to come in and grab it in the garbage truck.
His skill is driving a garbage truck.
Not a terrible idea, granted, but just when you think everything's fine, Mason, the one who got out of jail has a heart attack and he dies in the street, presumably because, like all of them, he smokes 100 cigarettes a day.
And he's always been 55.
That's right, exactly.
He's always been 55 years old. That's how he was born, like all of them. His heart's never been good.
Anyway, it's like $6 million. There's no cameras, so nobody's seen anything.
Yep.
The law enforcement's big plan is check every bag at the airport, which is hilarious nowadays because they make you take your shoes off.
Yeah, right.
And it's also, hey, you know that one road that goes out of Vegas? Just stop every car.
Yeah, except Sammy Davis Jr. driving the truck full of money, the garbage truck, just rolls up and he's like, hey guys, what's going on? And the cops are just like, get this truck out of here. Just go straight through. We don't have time to deal with you, garbage truck man.
You see them checking other people, and there's like an old woman in a car, and she's like, what happened? They're like, there was a robbery or whatever. And she's like, oh, okay. And then she just drives off. Check the boot. Check the back seat.
Yeah.
Do something. So they could have just driven it out in a regular car. I don't know.
They could have put the cash in their clothing.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Because $6 million physically, it's not a lot of money. It's like 6 small bags. So anyway, Sammy Davis Jr. drops off the garbage dump to pick up later. But in the meantime, there's a guy played by Cesar Romero who is the soon-to-be stepfather of Frank Sinatra's mate, whose one problem is that he's always had money for all the 55 years that he's been alive, being 55 for, and his mum always gives him money. And he's like, that's my problem. That's why I want to pull this heist off.
There's a scene where he calls his mother and he goes, Mum, I need some money. And she's like, oh, why? Not again, why? And he's like, I just need some spending money. Yes. And she's like, oh, fine then.
I thought it was for an investment.
So his mother is going to be marrying Cesar Romero, a man who is clearly the same age as him.
There's an hilarious line because Cesar Romero very quickly figures out that it's these 11 guys. Because he's like, well, that guy died in the street and he
was a paratrooper.
He was a paratrooper with Frank Ocean's men. I know he's not Frank Ocean. I'm combining names.
It's fine. But he doesn't figure it out by detective work or examining a crime scene. His wife to be is just like, boy, they're a paratrooper. Boy, well, all his army friends are hanging out, aren't they? They're always having meetings and saying
they're probably up to something.
Probably up to something in Las Vegas. Why else would they be in Las Vegas? And he's like, up to something in Las Vegas, like a crime.
So he figures it out and he goes to Frank Sinatra and he's like, what you've done, it's a real bloody work of art. First of all, it's fucking not. It's just walking into a room and taking some money. But he's like, I envy you guys. I envy your youth. And I looked up his age. This dude is 7 years older than Frank Sinatra.
And so he just goes to Frank Sinatra.
Frank Ocean.
Frank Ocean. And he goes to the other dudes and he's like, listen, I know what you did and I want half the money. And they're like, okay. Like, there's barely half a denial.
There's not like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Prove it.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
There's none of that at all.
Because he doesn't know where it's gone. He doesn't know how they got it out of the city, even if they have got it out of the city.
That's exactly it.
He's just like, you better give me half the money. They should just be like, we don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
There's literally no evidence because there's no cameras.
That's right, exactly.
Get out of here, mate.
You can just say somebody else saw you somewhere else at that exact time.
And there'd be
you're
no way
in
to
the clear
prove it.
forever.
That was forensics back in the day.
But I guess the Cesar Romero guy is supposed to be the bad guy. But I'm like, okay, he's found you out and you've admitted it immediately. Just give him half. He's not a worse bloke than you. I like him more than any of you. Right. Give him half of the money.
Yeah.
That's not unreasonable.
Yeah. Frank Sinatra could have just been like, look, we lost some of it. We'll give you $100,000 to get out of here.
That's it. So anyway, they put on blackface and they...
Yep.
What they do, under the cover of darkness, they sneak into where the electrician's body is, and they put all the money in the coffin, because they're like, nobody will find it in the coffin of the guy who died, who...
is clearly linked to this
to us and this crime. So we'll just take it away from the garbage dump with infinite piles of rubbish where you'd never find it.
Also, if it can fit in a coffin, it could also fit in probably any coffin-sized object.
Yeah.
As we previously mentioned, put it in a hot water heater, put it in a couple of suitcases.
Exactly. But in doing so, they take out $10,000 for the son of the electrician to give to him. Mm-hmm. But they also leave a band that says $10,000 on the floor next to the coffin. And the guy, the mortician, rings Cesar Romero and he's like, you told me to ring if something funny happened. And I'll tell you what something funny happened. I found a band that said $10,000 next to the coffin. I didn't open the coffin, but I just thought I want you to know that I found this band for $10,000.
Look, rules are rules. Mortician's rules. Once you close that coffin, you never open it up again.
So the idea is that they're going to go back after the funeral and get this money back. So they're in a hotel. The phone rings. Frank Ocean answers the phone and he goes, Operation Pine Box? What if it was Cesar Romero? Oh, it's in the coffin, is it? Because you just said pine box and your friend recently died and is in a pine box.
There's only one thing that you call a pine box and it's a coffin. Gee, bloody hell. I'm glad you were paying more attention than I was because I didn't pick up on that. So that's great stuff.
So they're sitting there in the funeral as it's happening and Cesar Romero's at the back and he's like, I bloody got them. And then the priest or whatever's like, and now it's time for the body to be cremated. And they're like, wah, wah, wah. And they all look at each other one at a time.
It's the same mortician, right? He just goes to the widow and he says, listen, you don't want to ship the coffin back to where you live because that's very expensive. So just have the funeral here and then we'll just immediately cremate the whole thing straight away. That'll be much cheaper. And she's like, oh, cool. Okay, great.
What they could have done is turn the lights off and just walk in and take the
money again, right? Why couldn't they just take it out?
Because at the movie just ends. They just leave.
Yeah.
And the credits are them just walking away down the street. The coffin's not on fire. Just storm in and grab it.
Yeah.
What a pack of fucking dummies.
Yeah, right.
This is a horrible film. Yeah. I know people are like, I hope Ocean's 8 doesn't tarnish the legacy of the Ocean's films. Most of these films are terrible.
3 out of the 4 are bad.
At least. Yes. And look, I don't mind Ocean's 13. It's fine.
Yeah.
But this is horrendous. And I remember reading an interview with George Clooney around the time when his version came out. Mm-hmm. And it was something like, hey, how does it feel to be like taking on like this legacy of a film, this titan of a blockbuster, you know, that was out and then everybody loved it. And he's like, have you seen it? It's a horrible film. I don't feel bad about it at all. There is no way we can't improve on that.
Well, I was going to say final thoughts, just some miscellaneous thoughts. One, everybody dresses like garbage in this film, except potentially Cesar Romero and the miscellaneous, vaguely Mediterranean boss guy. Everybody's like, oh my God, back in the day, everybody is so stylish. And so, no, they're not. Everybody's wearing a weird boxy suit that's buttoned at a weird angle and all their collars are askew. And the jackets bunch up at the back when they put their hands in their pockets.
Because they're drunk.
Yeah,
they're all drunk.
They're all drunk, yeah. And also, second one, every woman in this movie is being called toots and slapped on the ass.
That's right. This movie is utter shit. There's a lot of my favorite movies come from this era of filmmaking, but this is some bottom rung garbage.
Good luck getting through it, that's all I'll say.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, this has been Caravan of Garbage. If you've got a suggestion for something terrible to watch or read or do or play or whatever, we're more than happy to give it a bloody look-see, aren't we, Mason?
I would love to.
Yeah, if you've got any thoughts on this, please leave it below. A like always helps, doesn't it, Mason?
Absolutely, probably.
And there's also an extended audio edition you can find linked below if you want to check that out. If you want to be even more bored.
If you love some awkward pauses and some bits that we would normally cut out for this.
Also, there's videos here every Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday if you want to check them out. We also have a podcast called The Weekly Planet.
Weekly Planet.
Where we talk movies and comics and TV shows. That comes out every Monday. We've probably got an Oceans episode coming up, don't we?
I'd say so.
That's exciting, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes. All right, guys. Everybody have a fun and good time.
Grab that gem, you guys. We'll see you next week.
Goodbye.
I've been drunk this whole time.